No, they have, but the opinion you're right. The opinion is absolutely right. But the opinion usually starts there's too many elephants, and then I'm asking, I said, so too many for what? you know. So that was sort of the start of those days, you know. And yes, we've evolved a lot in our thinking since then because there were a lot of new insights, you know.
Yeah, sure. Sam, can I ask you, along the lines of those opinions, ask a very basic question because I know that you've thought through this a lot. You're probably the person who's thought through this the most, right? Because every day you're being challenged.
Yeah.
Is there such a thing as too many elephants?
So that's probably the most important question that people ask. And now there's a very interesting bunch of papers and reflections. I think the very first guy that challenged the concept of carrying capacity or some other stocking rate was a guy by the name of Sayre. He published a paper and he actually described the origins where it come from. And the original concept of carrying capacity was for what ships could hold in their hulls.
Makes sense.
And then later that was converted to what a horse can have on its back, you know. And somewhere along the line, somebody started using it for what the capacity is out there. Now, I think the first thing is there is no ecosystem that hasn't got some or other constraint on the resources. Okay, there's always something, you know. The resources are not unlimited. But what I think is where we're missing the point is that resource, what is available in an ecosystem, is also not just stable. So you can imagine, in a place like Kruger, I have got 35 different landscape types. Some of them are grasslands, some of them are woodlands, whatever the case may be. You can imagine that those things have got different levels of biomass and resources sitting out there. You can also imagine, after this rain that we've just had, this 2 weeks of rain, I can tell you, I walk in the field here now, the grass is above my head.
Yeah, the resource allocation has changed.
The resources allocation, the resources is significantly more now this year than last year. So if I come around and I do the classical assessment of what is possible now, this time I'm going to get a very different answer than if I were to do it in the dry season. As an example. So that's the other bit that we have to experience. The third one, which is also important, which makes it really difficult to get to a single magic number, is that animals, especially big animals themselves, influence what's there. So you can imagine if a whole herd of buffaloes now walking through all this tall grass, you know, and they remove it. It's not available anymore for the thing. So that fluctuates all the time. So for a big place like Kruger, we have to accept that there is going to be an enormous amount of variance. And in fact, some of the published work has highlighted that you would expect that for elephants, you would expect that the resources that will limit them will vary somewhere, if I remember correctly, between 2.1 elephant per square kilometer to something like 5 elephants per square kilometer. Now, you translate that in numbers across this place.
That's huge.
20,000 to 110,000 in the whole.
Yeah.
It's up to 180,000, you know. So that's the reality that I think happens. When you get to smaller places, it's a very different story because I'm often constrained. And that is what, I remember that the application is primarily developed originally for agricultural purposes in South Africa. It's been translated to ecological purposes. But again, we must be careful not to manage to a number and think I've dealt with the issue. And the reason for that is that when we looked at, or when we saw the work that was published on elephant impacts, so I think Rob Holdemont went and actually plotted the change that happened when there were elephants against how many elephants were there. Now that seems a very logical thing, and what really concerned me is when I looked at that graph is not the high end. When there's lots of elephants, there are impact. We know that, we expect that to happen. But what was really confusing to me is why do I have as high elephant impact when the elephant densities were very low? And I had that both when it was in fenced or in not fenced areas. Okay, so that certainly told me then that if you have to find a number, and I don't define a number, treat it as a guideline. But beware that if I manage to, whatever that number is on that small place or wherever it is, that I may actually create for myself a false sense of security. Because I may think, oh, everything is all good because I'm keeping arrows, elephants, and 0.5 square per square kilometer, whatever it might be. But actually some places in arrow get nailed anyway, because that's what the relationships say. So that was a really a big sort of thing that started thinking and me questioning the approaches of having of expecting that one is going to have a specific magic number or a number for a particular place.